Hello and welcome, dear listener, to the Stargazers podcast. Come and join us by the fire. The stars are out, and they look absolutely beautiful tonight.
Well, I say we've had a very productive week or a very productive couple of days leading into week 3, I believe we are now on.
Yes, it's week 3. We've been killing it, I think.
We have. Adam says we have 100 days left till the end of the project, which is a little scary to put into perspective, but I think we're doing a really good job.
Yeah, we're getting the most we can out of those days, if we keep going like we are now.
Exactly. So far, we've been discussing a lot of production stuff. In fact, we did do quite a significant production leap today, because we actually managed to visit Creative Services and discussed printing out a couple, laser cutting a couple draft tiles.
Yes, yeah, it's very exciting to get that step done. You fully mocked up the designs in Illustrator. They're looking lovely. You had to color code it so Snow White, when you upload it to Snow White, the laser printer software knew what to do with each cut, because you can make engravings, you can do you can do bevels, you can do full cut throughs.
You can do bevels, but for us it was more like, I've forgotten what it's called. I guess just engraving, or just burning the surface of the wood to give it a sort of tint.
Yes, it will burn the surface of the wood a bit, and also dig it in a bit as well. It's rasterizing.
Rasterizing? I knew it
That's a really, really big step. It's good to get that out of the way. That will be laser cut. It's only an A4 sheet, so it shouldn't take ages, and it's not complicated designs at all.
Yeah, it's also, I believe, only about 6 to 7 tiles, so very quickly.
Yes, it's we'll be able to just test how they feel in the hand, how they go together on the board, if the size is right, if the designs are clear, and all of that.
Exactly. So we'll reconvene when we get that. Hopefully
we should get that done by the end of the week, I'm sure. We also have been doing a lot of playtesting, especially today. We had some great games with Sophie, and the game we just came off the back of to come do this podcast was with Adam, a lecturer for year 1 who was doing some kind of board game talk that we interrupted, and Parker from year 2, and it was a gripping tale.
It truly was, and it also opened up a lot of things to how other people play the style of the game, because in most of our playtestings, we have been a part of the game, and through the game we've been able to show the rules and the style of play and possible strategies, but in this particular playtest we were completely hands-off. We were only discussing the rules, and, well, we tried to be completely hands-off.
As much as we managed.
It was hard.
It was. I mean, it's our baby. I want people to play with it well.
But it allowed us to see other people's completely unbiased playing styles.
I'm talking to you here, Adam, who I know will listen to this. You were so aggressive. I really didn't expect it. You spent a lot of time just coming after Parker, and then after that, like, we've seen people play aggressive. It's definitely a good way to play the game. The thing that we usually then see after is the person who's been aggressed upon is either then retaliates or tries to continue building up. And we saw you get away with that scot-free as you then went in on the third player with Parker in a team.
Yeah, poor Parker didn't even try to fight back.
I mean, it was tough. I mean, Parker was working out what was going on. I think a big thing we got back from that playtest was about the clarity of the source tiles.
Yes.
They liked pretty much every other tile. They thought it was very clear. They said they'd be able to recognize the tiles quite easily without color. I still think color's very good, but, you know.
Hey, it could be something to test in the future for color palettes when we get the production.
Oh, 100%. And when we get the tester MDF ones in, we can see what it looks like without color.
Yes,
but yeah,
absolutely.
the source tiles instead, they were saying they didn't really it isn't visually communicated that it's a source of all this power. It's what links everything together, because everything else has its connection points, and they were talking about how the sun has 6 connection points, so it's like, oh well, everything go into that. You know what? You designed it. I'll let you talk about it. Do you want to talk about why you designed the moon in the way you did, or the source in the way you did?
So, it was originally a game based off of which sigils and which tiles, and I'll be honest, for the source there, I used larger, intricate source that did have a moon motif going on anyway, and then it switched over to a constellation design later on during the development phase in semester 1. I figured, you know what, when you think of the stars, everything else is a star. Close your eyes and imagine the night sky. Apart from the stars, what's another significant thing you would see amongst all of them? Well, that would be the moon. We didn't design much of a tile purpose for it. I figured it'd be a great placeholder to be a source. It mainly was that connection of when you think of stars in the night sky.
And I think there's also a big thing with it is there's a lot of cultural importance to the moon. It's often related to a source of power through witchcraft and paganism, but also just mythology as well, with like Celeste and various other mythological figures providing large amounts of power to certain people.
It is also in a night sky from Earth, I should say, is pretty much the only source of light in the
very
darkness.
Much. And I think it does work very well thematically here, but we should consider if there's better alternative. And Parker had a really interesting idea of just having it be a fully blank, solid white tile.
Yeah, as if the entire tile itself is just made of white light, which is a take I hadn't even considered before.
No, it is kind of terrifying to think about. That, hey, yeah, this intricate design looking at cultural icons, like how these things are seen and viewed in society. What if just doing nothing about that design, just removing the design, just making it blank would be better?
Which, honestly, would solve the issue of, because I spent a while trying to think of, like, okay, if it can't be the moon, what else can it be? Could it be the Earth, maybe? Or, like, some kind of more intricate North Star? Or perhaps, like, multiple circles in once, but it was getting too complicated. So, yeah, what if it was just all stripped down to be nothing? It might be something to re-sketch out and consider.
I also think we could do something that is similar looking to a sun, but instead of having the central circle and then separated points, we have it arc nice curves between the points and then have something extra going on in the middle, but have it almost like I'm doing signals with my hands. That's the worst thing to do on a podcast.
You're gonna have to describe it to me.
There is a nice sweeping curve between each of the points, and there's a point on each of the alleyways it could go through.
I think I visualize it quite nicely.
Yeah, and then we have something fun in the middle, and we say, this is a supernova. This is it exploding outwards.
Yeah, or a gigantic star.
Yeah, something else is rushing out, all the forces rushing out into the other constellations, and it's running along the constellation.
That would still work in, because my main fear was that if I tried to bring it back and branch out from the basics of, like, okay, a source can power everything around it, it begins to look too close to the sun. But if it were a gigantic, or like supernova, or some kind of a giant star, it still works quite well. Yeah, the combination of stars, because the sun, at least our one, is quite young. Having it slightly larger and slightly more complex.
Definitely. The one thing I worried about is, with that design, it encourages people to feel like they need to go directly into, like they need to link to the source more.
That's what I was worried about as well.
Because what we currently have on it is you reinforced the border with an extra line. And I get they were saying it felt like techie in comparison to everything else, and like it was some kind of warp gate or mysterious power. I think that's an unfortunate way that it definitely can be seen. But I think the initial thinking behind the reinforcements on the borders was to be, hey, this is like acting on every border, no matter what.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight, or the whole point of the border was to highlight, like, oh, this tile is about its borders, because everything adjacent to it will be powered no matter what.
Yeah, cool. So there's a lot to think about with that design. We talked a bit about changes in material and even in theme. Adam was suggesting that with the indents we could fill them with resin, with a glittery resin, which I think wouldn't be too hard. It might be arduous to do it 50 times.
It would be a matter of, can we dedicate enough time to do this well? And I'll come out and say I've never used resin before, so it's also, are we willing to sacrifice a couple tiles if we don't do it well? Or if it
Yeah,
doesn't come
I mean,
out well?
I've used resin a bit. If we're just resin pouring into a gap, the weird thing is we wouldn't have to. The nicest way to do that is if we had it as each bit of, instead of it being an engraving or it being like rastered, we would have to have it as a full cut through, and then we fill in the full cut through with resin.
That would mean you'd be able to. Well, I guess unless it's tinted resin, right? You wouldn't be able
Yeah.
to see through it.
Well, if we put felt on the bottom, you wouldn't be able to.
True. But then you'd be able to see the felt through it.
Oh, true, and that would look bad.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it doesn't have to go all the way through. It could just be a deeper.
A deeper trowel. But then we'd need thicker tiles.
And I don't think the laser cutter can cut thicker tiles.
10 millimeters was the maximum.
Yeah.
Milliliters? Millimeters.
Yeah, I mean, we can give it a go on one of the practice tiles once we have more tiles going for us.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's an interesting idea, but I don't know how feasible it is.
Adam did mention this as well, but I think we are in quite a comfortable position to experiment with production because our base game is so foundationally clear.
100%. We've got a very, very solid foundation to start doing weird things on. We're almost, because our foundation is so good, we can do little tweaks to make it slightly better behind the scenes, but I think unless we radically changed the structure of the game, we could only get it up to a maximum of 5% or 10% better than it currently is with tweaks. So it kind of feels like we're back in the double diamond stage, where we're expanding. We're at the beginning of the double diamond. We're expanding into a whole bunch of new ideas of how can we alter this game again? How can we add extra elements that really make it pop and feel special? And then once we have more of a scope of what we want to do, we can make a plan of what we need to do to make that happen, and then we can scope down what is actually possible.
Yeah, because again, from today we have exactly 100 days to complete this task.
That is terrifying.
A little scary, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll definitely get it done, 100%.
Oh, for sure. I think this is quite feasible for us to make.
Yeah, I think we're in probably the safest place of many people on the course. Because we simply, to make our game function, if we could stop doing any dev immediately, and we could just both work on production and get it done, and then we would have a functional game.
But yeah, I think by Easter, honestly.
Oh, yeah. But I think getting the dev to make the game feel really good would be... I mean, of course it's worth it. It's worth using as much time as we can to improve the game. I mean, I can talk a bit about how I'm doing that. The plan is, there's 3 different types of special tile in the game we have currently. But the way I want it to be expandable, I can make new special tiles and they can be swapped in and out for different special tiles. So there will only ever be 3 types of special tile in a game, but there can be a lot more variety because they'll come with extra ones that you can swap in and out. Similar to games of Quacks of Quedlinburg that change the rules of certain tiles. It allows me to safely expand upon the base we've already got, where I can just add new innovations. I mean, we can have a little bit of a tile talk, if you want.
I think that's a good idea. Entering our tile talk.
Entering the tile talk segment. Yeah, I think it's always fun to just talk over kind of ideas, and I'll get some ones I've had for a bit in. The first one's the wormhole. It's a special tile that there's 3 special tiles, and then 3 additional tiles that are put to the side if the wormhole's in the game. So when you draw and play a wormhole tile, you also get to play the other one. So you get to play 2 at once. And it allows the player to continue their power through a wormhole anywhere on the board. The issues I'm running into that is either we'd need to show how each wormhole pair is linked, which would be we could do with color or we could do with symbols, but might make it too complicated. Or every wormhole is linked to every wormhole, and that sounds like a hell.
That feels like it would be pretty insane.
Yeah, so I think being able to just send your power across a board is really strong, I think it would have to have 0 base point.
I think so too. That feels right. Again, we would have to play test it in the game, but I think for something that allows you to cover so much distance and range, it's got to be worth, well, less.
Yes. One reason I like it is it allows for easier stealing. My initial philosophy of something I want to design is maybe some tiles that allow you to steal easier without just definitively having them be, this is a stealing tile. If you place it, you steal stuff. Because I want the stealing to be backed up just by the mechanics of how it works, and instead of just being like a flat, oh, well, I did the thing, it still feels like you have to work for it. And so it allows for the kind of plays that you see with sources, where you can rotate a tile, cut off someone's thing, and then if you can see a wormhole in the shop, you can then route your power over there and power their stuff and steal it.
Yeah. That's a good point, because currently stealing only works A, unless you pull a source and steal unclaimed territory, or B, if you steal from your neighbours. So if other players are branching off on the complete opposite side of you, unless you loop all the way around and or get a source, there is no feasible way for you to steal their content. You are just locked into your neighbours, which isn't a bad thing, but something to consider.
Yeah, definitely. I think it mainly comes in a 4-player game.
Mm.
But in a 4-player game, being able to get people who effectively make quadrants for themselves. It seems people divide the space fairly evenly, and then maybe they play more aggressively in that space, or they play more defensively in that space. But in 2s, they take half, in 3s, they take a third, and they take a quarter if it's 4.
I think especially in early plays, from what we've seen in a lot of playtesting, a lot of players do, especially in early stages, branch off their own way and almost feel a bit hesitant to encroach on other people's space until they feel they have that stable foundation. And then they go, like, okay, well, maybe I will rotate to you a little bit.
Yeah, that's been a thing we've been seeing, is there's almost no rotation in the first 5, 6 turns of the game. Like, 4 rounds, almost. Because there's pretty much nothing to rotate. There needs to be vulnerable tiles left over for someone to be able to rotate something to any effect. Otherwise, you're just spinning them and they're losing connection to one tile, and that doesn't feel good.
You want to wait, in theory, till they have a much larger constellation for you to then break, so it feels more impactful. Because, again, you are wasting an entire turn rotating, so you got to make sure that rotation counts.
Yes, but it's also a fun game of chicken often, because if you just wait too long to rotate, they may fully secure their board, and it's no longer rotatable.
Which happened in the most recent playtest of the year 1 lecturer. There were moments where Adam and Parker could have rotated him out, but they left it too long, and the guy got 2 suns back to back and created a very defensible loop that had so many branching paths that no matter where you rotated, he would always have the majority of his constellation connected.
Yeah, that was fascinating. And they both recognized they were behind, and the sort of the social aspect of the game's balancing really kicked in when Parker was just like, okay, you know what we need to do? I need to work with Adam here to try and stop this guy. And it was very tense, and it really exemplified just how important the if everyone rotates in a chain, the game ends rule is. Because there was so much interesting play, so much important choice on whether someone would choose, like the lecturer in particular, would choose, do I want to take another round of battering to place down another tile and then maybe be able to rotate and fix my stuff? Or do I just say, fuck it, this is where the game ends, I think I can squeak out a victory?
Which is what he ended up doing in the end, if
Yes,
I remember correctly.
the scoreline was a very, very tense 20 to Parker, 20 to Adam, and 21 to the lecturer. Just...
Yeah. It came down to combos.
yeah, just getting out of danger. It was very, very entertaining and tense to watch. And behind the scenes, because I wasn't playing the game, I felt like I could do this. I was counting the number of base points that each player had, and consistently, at round 10, every player had 16 base points. It remained very equal throughout a lot of the game.
Despite Adam pulling, 6 2-point tiles back to back.
Yes.
So I guess that's good balancing on us.
Yeah, I think he pulled 9 tiles, and 7 of them were 2 points. But he did spend most of his time messing up Parker and then the lecturer. Which, I don't think... We've seen people play aggressive. We've not seen someone play that aggressive.
I don't think we've played that aggressive.
Yeah, it was very, very good stress test. I think in previous versions of this game, it shows how far we've come that playing aggressive is a good but not terrible, not a terribly unfun playstyle. In that, in previous versions of this game, if you got someone who played aggressive, who took your stuff, you just wouldn't be able to ever do anything about it afterwards.
Yeah, they just dominated the entire board.
Yeah, because it used to be that taking over other people's tiles was entirely based off your own power, and whoever had more, if there was two tiles flying into each other, whoever had more tiles down powered would immediately consume all of the other person's stuff. So one person would just become this giant monster that no one could do anything about, because not only do they have all these tiles so they can't steal normally, it's also harder to depower them because they've picked up this other person's defensive network.
Exactly, yeah. I'm glad that was fixed in semester 1, because that was a very large issue that I was struggling with when I first created the game.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing to work out, but I think if we had never worked that out, I don't think the game would be nearly as good as it is right now.
Oh yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention was Adam did mention a good point of maybe having a little token to indicate which tiles have been rotated.
Yes, I think it is really, really nice to have just a physical reminder of what the fuck has happened on the board, why things are, why I can't rotate that tile. And I think especially a way to do it that would be nice would be each little god has their own token. Basically, if I can rotate something and then place my own token on it, so we know how long we have to wait until that's rotatable again.
Yeah, and then you take back your token or rotate again.
Yes. And if you rotate again, you can just move your token over.
It's effectively doing what the odd tile in Labyrinth does in that board game, in which so Labyrinth works. Have you played Labyrinth before?
I have not played Labyrinth before.
Oh, it's a good game, we'll have to play it later. But Labyrinth works by pushing entire rows of tiles through the actual board itself. However, there are an odd number of tiles, so that you have to take one of the tiles and slide it into the other side and push the entire row along. And when you do that, one of the tiles will automatically fall out of the board and will be a visual indicator of okay, this row along this side has been moved. And then you cannot then reshuffle that row and or column again.
So the indicator of what you can and can't do is inbuilt into the game system.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's very clean.
It's very good.
I don't think there's something we can do that is that clean.
Oh, no, but as in that tile acts as a little signifier of okay, this row, this column. For us it could be, okay, this token acts as a signifier of this person, this rotation.
Yes, very much so. Also, my brain is reminding me of something entirely unrelated. When we were talking to them, Parker brought up the thing that we worked out the solution to and then forgot, of if the tiles are physical, it will be tough to pick up and rotate them. And so we needed the thumb slot. We forgot to put the thumb slot on the tiles.
Yes, the little bevel. Well, I wonder, because that will have to be slightly slanted, right? Not just like a cutout.
I was thinking just a cutout, and you could get your thumb in there.
Oh, really? Okay. We'd have to be careful, though, because that might affect how the different pathways go out.
It would only ever affect the design of source tiles and sun tiles. Every other tile has a gap on it.
True, it has space. As to what you thought you asked what I was thinking not fully cut all the way through, but almost like a groove all the way down. There'd be a little bit of wood at the bottom, but saying that out loud, I realised that wouldn't actually help with you gripping the actual tile.
Yeah, you're saying it slants downwards.
Yeah. But it doesn't cut through the wood, but that wouldn't.
I think that would make it harder to pick up. Curious. I mean, I guess you could probably get a nail into the grooves of each tile.
But then they wouldn't stack in the bag, would they?
No.
No, I think the little notch works well.
Yeah. Also, if we want to keep it uniform between the designs, it might look a bit more weird, but we could have it so it's on one of the corners.
Oh, I see what you mean. That would keep it consistent.
It would keep it consistent, and it means it would never interfere with a line. Like, it would even fit on the sun tile.
True.
Yeah, that might be cleaner.
Yeah, I think once we get these test laser prints out, I think we'll definitely either cut it out ourselves or just visualize it on the physical prints.
Yeah, just give me a coping saw, I can cut it out.
I mean, there is that sale at Home Depot.
Oh, there is a sale at Home Depot. We did, this is something to mention, there is slight improvements to production of this podcast. As we live in a house with Aiden and Jaden, who are doing, I don't know what they named their podcast, the Soft Bones Production Podcast, or whatever.
I assume so.
Yeah, their podcast with Butterfly Machine. They are renting out a mic that is very, very nice. And we talked to them and we were like, because we have podcasts on about the same schedule, we can borrow the mic after they use it. And now Caitlin, we can hear her lovely voice better.
Now you can hear me a lot better from my quite terrible, let's face it, quite terrible headphone jack mic.
Yeah, I might talk a bit about the editing of the podcast because that was a big thing I did last week. Yeah, I can't defend your headphone mic. It was something, and I honestly, more than it sounding a bit like you're across a room or in a small jar.
They put me in the Tupperware box.
They put me in Tupperware. They're keeping me for a snack. I think the biggest issue that we faced with it, or that I faced with it during editing, was that somehow, despite the fact that your Audacity was set up entirely in a way that this should not have been possible, it recorded my audio through Discord into your audio input on your headphones.
Yeah, which should not have happened. We double checked the levels and the audio input. I don't know what happened unless it started recording from my laptop mic, but it clearly didn't. So.
No, it definitely didn't. You sounded the exact same as you do on the headphone mic. I think the thing was it's headphones that aren't built to really be a mic, so the audio input and output aren't split well. So anytime your computer played something, that audio info went up to your headphones and then also went to the mic. Because we also got the... I did cut it out. There was a very funny moment where you had a big laptop notification sound ring through.
I got an email.
Yeah, you got an email. But no, people interrupt each other so much when we speak. Especially, I'm ADHD riddled and don't know my turn to talk. So I talk a lot. And I'm bad at knowing when to talk. But I made it sound terrible. I do find it really funny. Because I could cut out all of the times that you were going to talk and I talked instead. But I could not cut out the times where I was going to talk and you talked instead.
Yeah, I painted you in a poor light, which wasn't the situation.
It's humorous enough that simply I could not care. No, that was a bit of a trek to work out how to produce and properly cut together those two audio streams, but hopefully Caitlin has a wonderful time editing this week's episode with our split feeds that should not overlap, fingers crossed.
I think you took the brunt of the technical issues, and hopefully I can learn from your struggles.
Yeah, I mean, I still had a really, really fun time doing it, to be honest. I struggled a bit at the beginning, and then I got into a workflow, and I was just chopping and changing the audio back and forth quite quickly. I think I'm a fan of Audacity and how it seems to have treated our audio. And this week we can use the vocal pack from Jaden as well.
Yeah, we can paste that on immediately and see, now that we are both using proper mics, we can see how it muffles out any extra noise.
Yes, definitely. I kind of want to talk a bit about the fact that we're planning some fun things for this podcast. There are big things coming.
Big things coming. I think we can mention it. A sort of ending on the podcast, seeing what else will come.
I mean, we should also talk about what we plan to do, but I guess we kind of have. It's production stuff. We need to work out documentary stuff. We need to storyboard that.
So, well, we can say that now. I suppose for the next coming week / the end of this week, we need to storyboard a documentary, we need to rewrite the rulebook and also input the images to be easier to understand. And I guess we need to collect our laser and sort of move from there on production.
Yeah, doing the rules, I've slapped up like the base writing of all the rules that we need, and then I've taken photos with all of the different tiles out. I'm then going to draw over those tiles to make little diagrams.
Is it worth me reading through the rulebook and sort of going through any like grammatical errors and like, okay, so I'm thinking you're a mechanics designer and that is great, that is absolutely incredible for a game. But I've read through the rulebook once, so I think I can come with the perspective of, okay, this is a little bit too specific. I think for a casual audience, we can slim this down.
Yeah, that's fair. We did during a playtest try and get Sophie to learn how to read the rules, and it was a bit of a mess. I think it would have been a lot smoother with the diagrams, but that's how it is. Yeah, I 100% think I've written them in a way that I love card game wording. It's honestly one of the nerdiest things I think that is my interest, is the way card games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering have to be incredibly precise around their wording and their grammar and their internalized logic. I find that fascinating. And I approached this, I think, from that kind of standpoint. But I did learn year one, even, actually, when I made Kraken's Plunder, the board game with Logan, that I need to read through and dumb down not dumb down, just make it more human.
Yeah, simplify. Because at the end of the day, we are game designers. We have the knowledge to understand and process these rules and specifics quite easily. But we have to tailor it towards the average audience.
Yes. And also, we're looking at it from the perspective of people who already know how these mechanics work. It's so much tougher if you're a stranger. Do you have anything else you'd like to say about our plans this week, or no?
Not particularly. I mean, I'm continuing designs on my end. I think I'm going for some more cozy creature designs for, the little gods, taking a more like Animal Crossing approach, and might run a poll to people, A, people who haven't played the game, and B, people who have, and sort of toss it up in the air of like, oh, what do people prefer, and then come back with feedback and reiterate more designs.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good thing to do, and to work out how you do feel about... I think it's interesting to explore different types of design rather than just high fashion gods. Well, for our upcoming podcast, what's in the works is, I believe we will do a crossover episode with the Softbones production team, and we're also thinking about doing an in-person episode where me and Caitlin sit by an actual fire and roast actual marshmallows.
Under the night sky.
Probably the most important bit.
We'll just have a casual time. Who knows if we'll even talk about the game.
We also are going to look into possibly bringing the lovely alumni Liz and Ari onto this podcast, as they have tenure, and they did an amazing game, High Harmony Closing Night, last year, and ran a podcast very much like this called Muse Chat. And I think gaining their insight into how they made their game, the hurdles they ran into, and what they thought worked really well would really help our production from here on out.
Exactly. We're kind of like their successors in terms of the podcasts. So it'd be interesting to see their perspective on it. And also, I don't think I actually ever played their game.
Really?
So I'm really excited to hear the design process and the actual gameplay of what it was like.
I was close to it. The process was very interesting. I was part of a lot of the game testing, and due to my Knuckles kid demeanor, I broke it multiple times.
Which was great for development, may I say.
Yeah. It does work wonders, and Aiden does call me into the room sometimes with code, and he's just like, can you please try and break it? Just give it a go.
I need you to break this for me.
Yeah, and as soon as Sophie tried to offer me her game, her playtest to play, I touched one slider and broke it in a way she had never seen before.
Let's go! That's impressive.
I didn't even try and do that one, so woof. I think that's everything we might want to cover.
Yeah.
Well, I see the sun on the horizon. The embers are burning low. It might be time for day to start. Thank you for joining us, dear listeners, for the second episode of Starlight Chat. Have a wonderful, wonderful